Cinderella killed her evil stepmother in GiamBatista Basile's The Cat Cinderella, which happens to be the 13th Cinderella tale in this collection. So let's dig into it for Friday the 13th. Cinderella is a very old story. Very early varieties can be tracked back to Greece in the year 600 and China around the year 850. But the first fleshed-out literary version in Europe is credited to our guy, GiamBatista Basile, the very author of The Sun, the Moon, and Talia, the worst Sleeping Beauty. His version of Cinderella, written in 1634, roughly translates to the Cinderella cat. Now, she isn't a cat. In fact, a cat never fucking appears, which is my first complaint. The name seems to refer to how sneaky and smart this Cinderella is. Yes, it's true. This is not a tale of a good, patient girl. This is a tale of a Cinderella who is ruthless and drama-fueled. This is the Cinderella cat. There once was a prince who was recently widowed. He had a daughter he adored named Zezola, and he gave her everything he could bestow upon the girl. He shortly remarried, and his new wife really loathed the kid. She treated her so poorly that the girl began complaining to her governess, Carmesina. "My stepmother is so mean to me, Miss Carmesina. Not at all like you. If only you were my mother." You know, I'm pretty keen on that idea myself, and I have an idea on how we can achieve it. You don't need to say a word more. Whatever your idea is, I am 100% in. Okay, this is the plan. One day soon, when your father goes out for the day, tell your stepmother you want one of the old dresses from a trunk in the attic. Those things are so ragged and out of date, she'll be thrilled to put one on you. And the trunks are so heavy, she'll need your assistance to hold open a lid. When she leans in to pick out a gown, drop the lid on her and it'll break her fucking neck. Okay! So the girl killed her stepmother. Then came the next part of the plan. Naturally, your father will have to mourn for a bit. But when the time is right, start telling him you want me to be your new mother. That man would do anything for you. So after a mourning period, the girl began pestering her dad to marry Carmesina. And eventually the idea won him over and the two got hitched. Carmesina treated Zezola lovingly for about 5 days. Then she dropped the bombshell. "So I have 6 daughters. Surprise!" And Carmesina was so cunning, she managed to turn those 6 daughters into the apple of the dad's eye, while also convincing him to loathe and neglect Zezola. So if you're checking off your list of, well, that's not from the Disney version, you can check off Cinderella, murderer, evil stepmother, 2 of them, stepsisters, 6 of them, and dad, very much alive and terrible. And it's here that they cast the girl to the kitchens and give her the nickname Cinderella Cat. Now luckily, when Zezola's dad had remarried again, a dove had visited the girl and told her, "Hey, if you ever need anything, just summon the fairies on the island of Sardinia and they'll take care of it." Thanks, random bird! So when Zezola's terrible dad was summoned to Sardinia for business, she was gonna get some help from the fairies. "Alright, stepdaughters, what can I bring you back?" Dresses, makeup, perfume, toys, jewels, you know the drill." "Sounds great." "Ugh. And what do you want, utter shame of my loins?" "I want nothing, father, except this. Give my regard to the fairies there, and have them send me something. And know this. Should you forget my request, may you be cursed to the same spot. No moving forward, no moving back." "Alright, you fucking weirdo." Sure enough, on his travels, her dad completely forgets about Zezola's request. And when he boarded his ship home, the ship wouldn't budge from the port. The captain was at his wit's end. And that night when he fell asleep from the stress, a fairy from Sardinia visited his dream. "Hey honey, if you want this boat to move, why don't you ask the prince about the daughter he forgot because he's a fucking knob? My lord, a fairy visited my dream last night and told me we're stuck here because you forgot about your daughter's request and also you're a fucking knob." "Oops. Alright, off to the fairy grotto. Knock knock." "Yes?" "My daughter Cinderella, Zezola, sends her regards and asked you to send her something." "Oh, Zezola, we adore that girl. Send her my love. And also bring her back this date tree and these fancy gardening tools to take care of it." The prince returned with the girl's presents, and Zezola promptly planted the date tree. When it grew to a person height, a beautiful fairy waltzed out from it. "And what is your wish, dear?" I wish I could go out and leave the house without my sisters knowing. Well, that's easy! Whenever you want to go out, just ask the tree to dress you up fancy. You'll look so grand, they will not recognize you if they see you out and about. Then when you get home, ask the tree to put you back in your Cinderella rags, and they'll be none the wiser. Thank you so much, Tree Fairy! So in the Cinderella Cat, fancy balls are not the occasion we focus on. Nor are we particularly worried about a handsome prince getting married. No, it's feast days Cinderella gets gussied up for, which are essentially religious celebrations. In fact, in many early versions of Cinderella, it's church she shows up and shows off at. So it's a feast day, and Zezola's stepsisters get all dressed up and they head on out. And Zezola runs out to her fairy god tree and asks it to gussy her up. Not only does it give her a fresh gown and shoes, but it gives her a beautiful coach with a dozen footmen. She shows up to the feast day as this beautiful, mysterious lady, and her stepsisters are drooling in envy. And it's just by coincidence that the king of the land is there and happens to see her too. Now, the king is not related to her father, the prince, as far as I can tell. I don't really know what the politics are in this. But yeah, her dad's a prince, and then there's this king who falls in love with her. Servant, get me the deets on that beautiful woman. I want to know who she is, I want to know where she lives, get me the deets. Sure thing, your majesty. Zezola caught wind that the king was sniffing around about her identity, so she mounted her coach and got the hell out of there. The servant was right at her heels, so Zezola threw out a handful of coins to distract him. Ooh, shiny! He forgot about the girl, and Zezola was able to get home in time to change back into her Cinderella state. Meanwhile, when the servant returned to the king with a handful of coins and no information on the girl, the king was pissed. You sold off my pleasure for fucking pennies? Don't you dare disappoint me if she shows up again! The next feast day arrived, and this time the fairy tree produced an entire team of beauticians to make Zezola even more beautiful than before. Once again, she showed up at the feast day, made an impression, but ran away before the king could meet her. This time she threw pearls and jewels at the king's servant, and you can't blame the man for stopping to grab them. I mean, how much could that king really have been paying him? I vow on the souls of my ancestors that if you don't find out who that girl is next time, I will kick you in the ass once for every hair on your beard. Those are the type of lines that make Basile's tales really fun, as much as I tend to hate them. The third feast day, the fairies gussied up Zezola so much that she looked like, and I quote, a whore arrested on the public promenade. Fucking Basile. What's fun in this version is that Zezola doesn't give a fuck about a man. She is showing up purely to spite and one-up her stepsisters. Now this time when Zezola ran away, she told the coachman to put the pedal to the metal, so to speak. They rode off so fast one of her slippers fell off. The servant brought it back to the king, and the king monologues a love speech to that slipper. Oh my god. If the foundation is so smoking, what must the house be like? Yeah, I'm gonna go. Servant, have the trumpeter issue the following proclamation. We will hold a festival and a banquet, and every woman in the kingdom must show up to try on this shoe. So the banquet happens, they have this huge menu that they describe greatly, and all the women in the land, rich and poor, show up to try on the shoe, except one. They all try on the shoe, which is just such a huge fucking waste of time. Dude, wouldn't he know she wasn't there? If she was so beautiful, she stood out of the crowd 3 times before. Why go through this ceremony? Ugh! Anyway, no one could fit in the slipper, and the king was devastated. He requested silence of the entire crowd. Tomorrow, we are doing this whole thing over again. And if you motherfuckers have a single ounce of respect for me, don't leave a single maiden home. Oh, I just remembered. Your Highness, I have a daughter at home that I didn't bring today, but she's a pathetic little kitchen wench and has no business breathing the air you breathe. Really? Well, I'm gonna put her at the top of the fucking guest list. I mean, I could just bring her back here and you could try the shoe on her. We don't have to go through this whole rigmarole again. I want everyone here tomorrow, same time, same place. These are your tax dollars at work. So they repeated the whole thing the next day, and Zezola showed up with her family. I believe she was probably just in her Cinderella rags, but they don't specify. But the king does recognize her. He doesn't show it, but he recognizes her. And they try the shoe on her, and this is my favorite part. The slipper literally jumps out of the steward's hand and onto her foot like a magnet. The King runs up to Zezola, embraces her passionately, sits her down on the throne right there and plops a crown on her head and proclaims her the queen. Boom! Instant no-fuss royal wedding. That's how you do it. Meet your queen and curtsy, you sons of bitches. I just want to say, suck it, old family. And the step family slunk home in humiliation. The end. Thank you for watching. You can support me on Patreon if you want to hear more stories. See you for the next fucked up fairy tale. This has been Oops, AllCinderella. Please discuss the tale in the comments and leave me a number between 1 to 345 to request a future tale.